Light a fire in any wild place on Earth and watch what happens. Everything runs. The deer bolt, the birds scatter, the snakes pour out of the grass. The insects abandon a tree they have lived in their entire lives. Across 4 billion years of life on this planet, every single species arrived at the same simple rule about fire, and the rule is get away from it. And then, somewhere between 1 and 2 million years ago, one animal broke it. It walked towards the fire, it sat down beside it, and it stayed. That animal was us, and it is the strangest decision our species has ever made, and we are still doing it. Tonight, all over the world, people will deliberately light a fire and then sit around it in a circle, staring into the flames for hours, for no practical reason at all. Their houses are already heated. Their food is already cooked. They do it anyway. Meanwhile, there is not one other animal on this planet that will voluntarily sit down next to an open flame. Not one. So why is every animal afraid of fire, and why are we not? The answer is not that we are braver than they are. It is that fire did something to our bodies that it never did to theirs. And by the end of this video, you are going to understand that you personally cannot survive without it. There are 4 layers here. Let us go. First, take their side for a moment, because their fear is extremely reasonable. A wildfire is not a warm campfire. A serious grass fire moves faster than a human can sprint. It generates its own wind. It roars loudly enough that you cannot hear anything else coming. It throws burning material ahead of itself and starts new fires half a kilometer away. The heat arrives before the flame does, and the smoke arrives before the heat. For an animal that survives by reading its surroundings, a wildfire is the moment every one of its senses stops working at the same time. And it does not just kill directly. It erases the whole map an animal lives by. The scent trails are gone. The landmarks are gone. The burrow that was safe an hour ago is now an oven with one exit. A predator you can at least understand. It wants to eat you. It comes from somewhere, and when it is full, it stops. Fire wants nothing, comes from everywhere, and never stops until there is nothing left to take. Fearing it is not superstition. It is the single most rational calculation an animal ever makes. So a question for this story is that animals are born with a hardwired terror of flame, and that is not what the evidence shows. There is no fire gene. Animals raised away from fire will often approach it, investigate it, and get far too close. What they have is a general aversion to sudden heat, roaring noise, and heavy smoke, plus the ability to learn very fast from one bad experience. It is not programmed horror. It is caution, and it is the same caution that keeps them away from a cliff edge. And once you see it as caution instead of terror, the exceptions start appearing, because plenty of animals have worked out that a fire front is the best dinner service in nature. Everything small and edible is fleeing in a straight line out of the smoke. So the birds come, the kites gather, the falcons arrive. The storks walk in behind the flames to pick over what is left. Across Africa, Australia, and South America, birds of prey learn to hunt the edge of a fire, and they are not tolerating it nervously. They are waiting for it, the way a fisherman waits for a boat to come in. Then there is the one that sounds like folklore, and is not. In northern Australia, black kites, whistling kites, and brown falcons have been seen picking up burning sticks from the edge of a fire, carrying them in their beaks or their talons, and dropping them into dry grass that is not caught yet. It spreads the fire, it panics more prey out of the new patch, and the birds eat. Aboriginal Australians had been describing this for generations, and it took until a 2017 study for it to be written down properly in the scientific literature. So we are not actually the only species on Earth that uses fire. We are just the only one that can make it, and one animal actively hunts fire itself. There is a family of jewel beetles with infrared sensors built into pits on their body to exploit, which means the interesting question was never why they run away. Almost everything runs away from a thing that can kill it. The interesting question is the other one. Why did one skinny, slow, thin-skinned ape do the opposite, and what did it cost? Because it did cost something, and we are still paying it today. Here is the reveal. We did not tame fire so much as fire rebuilt us. Once our ancestors began cooking, food became dramatically easier to chew and to digest, and evolution did what evolution always does with an expense it no longer needs to pay. Our jaw muscles shrank. Our teeth shrank. Our guts shortened because a shorter gut is enough when the food arrives pre-softened, and the enormous energy saving went somewhere else, into the most expensive organ in the body. Cooking did not just feed the human brain, it paid for it. Think about what cooking actually is. It is digestion that happens outside the body before the food ever reaches your mouth. Heat breaks down the tough fibers and unfolds the proteins that your stomach would otherwise have to fight through, so a cooked meal gives up far more of its energy than the same meal raw, and it gives it up for almost no effort. A gorilla has to eat for most of its waking life and carry a huge fermenting gut to survive on raw leaves. We got to close that factory down and spend the savings on thinking. If that changes how you think about a cooked meal, subscribe, because this whole channel is about the places where being weak turned out to be the reason we won. And stay with me, because the proof of this is not in a fossil. It is in modern people who tried to go back. Because you can test this. Modern humans who commit to a strictly raw diet with all the advantages of a supermarket, blenders, imported fruit, and year-round supply still tend to lose body weight steadily, and a large proportion of the women on long-term raw diets stop menstruating altogether. Their bodies quietly conclude that this is not a good year to have a baby, and these are people with access to food our ancestors could not have dreamed of. Take away the cooking, and our species cannot reliably reproduce. That is not a preference. That is a dependency. So the second question, and I think this one is genuinely uncomfortable. If you had to survive 1 month in a forest with no matches, no lighter, and no way to start a fire, how long do you honestly think you would last? Not how long you would like to last. Honestly. Put a number in the comments, and then remember that every single one of your ancestors solved that problem, or you would not be here to answer it. The archaeology is patchy, because fire leaves an awkward kind of evidence, but the trail is there. Burnt bone and ash inside Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, 1,000,000 years old, deep enough inside that lightning could not have put it there. Clusters of burnt flint and seeds at a site in Israel from around 800,000 years ago, in the same spot again and again, which is what a hearth looks like. And from roughly 400,000 years ago, proper fireplaces, used repeatedly in the center of the living space. Not a lucky fire, a kept one. And that word, kept, is the whole argument. A single burnt patch could be lightning, but the same spot, blackened over and over, ringed with the cracked bones of cooked meals, sitting in the middle of where people slept, is not an accident that kept happening. It is a decision that kept being made. Somebody chose that place, and somebody kept the fire in it alive long enough to leave a stain we can still read 100,000 years later. And you are carrying the result of that in your face right now. Compare your jaw to a chimpanzee's. A chimpanzee spends around 6 hours a day chewing, has muscles that run right up the side of its skull to anchor that bite, and teeth built for grinding raw plant matter into pulp. You spend perhaps half an hour a day chewing food that has been softened for you by heat. Your bite is feeble, your teeth are small, your jaw is so reduced that a third of you cannot even fit your own wisdom teeth into it. That is a body that has outsourced its digestion to a fire. Fire also solved a problem that had nothing to do with food. Every ape sleeps up in the trees, and they do it for one obvious reason. The ground at night belongs to something else. Our ancestors came down out of the branches and started sleeping on open ground, which should have been suicide, and the thing that made it survivable was a circle of flame and somebody awake to feed it. Fire is the reason we could lie down, unconscious, for 8 hours in the middle of a continent full of animals that eat primates. And it did something subtler than that. It extended the day. Every other animal on the savannah has its life cut in half by darkness and simply stops. Fire handed us 4 or 5 extra hours that no other species has ever had, and those hours were useless for hunting or gathering because you cannot see beyond the light. They were only good for one thing. No speed and no armor became, after dark, completely untouchable. Not because we got stronger, because we were holding the one thing that everything else on the continent had spent countless generations learning to run from. Think about the reversal in that. For most of our history, we were prey. We were slow, soft meat that any big cat could take, and at night, when we could not see them coming, we should have been at our most helpless. Instead, night became the safest part of our day, because the predators had handed us a weapon they could never pick up themselves. And our closest relatives are further along this road than people realize. In Senegal, researchers watching savanna chimpanzees during the annual burning season found that they do not panic at wildfire. They watch it. They move calmly, they judge which way it is going, and they reposition themselves ahead of it without any of the terror you see in other animals. They cannot start a fire and they cannot keep one alive, but they can read one, which suggests your window had to be melted, the bricks in your walls had to be fired, the steam that powered the first factories was boiled. The electricity running this video, for most of the world, is still made by burning something to spin a turbine. Every technology we have is downstream of a hominin deciding not to run away. It has never been free either. Smoke inside a shelter is genuinely dangerous, and cooking over open fires indoors still contributes to millions of deaths a year from lung disease, overwhelmingly among women and small children in poorer countries. Burns are one of the oldest injuries in the human record, and the same tool we use to clear land has repeatedly escaped us and taken the settlement with it. We are the only animal that has to manage a predator it deliberately keeps inside the house. And here's the part that gives the whole thing away. We do not need it anymore, and we will not put it here. And the effect gets stronger the longer people sit there and the more social the setting is. Think about how strange that is. The one thing that sends every other animal on Earth into a full panic is the thing that our nervous system reads as safety. Our bodies have the response backwards, and it is backwards on purpose, which finishes a pattern we keep running into on this channel. The orca does not kill you because it decided not to. The mosquito kills more of us than every predator combined because it is too small to fight. The polar bear hunts you because you look like food. In every one of those stories, our strength was never the point. And here it is again, in its cleanest form. The weakest large primate on the savannah won the continent by picking up the one thing nothing else would touch. So here's the twist. Every animal is afraid of fire because fire behaves exactly like a predator. It is fast, it is hungry, it grows while it feeds, and it cannot be reasoned with. Their fear is correct. Ours would have been correct too. What our ancestors did was not conquer that fear, it was something much odder. They walked up to the most dangerous force in their world and adopted it. We took a predator into the camp. We fed it every night. We carried it when we moved, and in return it fed us, guarded us, and slowly rebuilt our bodies until we could not live without it. And nothing else has ever done it. Not in 4 billion years. There have been animals smarter than us in specific ways, animals with better memories, better senses, better teamwork. Fire has been burning on this planet since land plants first gave it something to burn, 400 million years or so. And every creature that ever lived took one look at it and made the sensible decision. Exactly one lineage made the other one. So the next time you find yourself sitting in front of a fire, staring into it, not talking, just watching it move, notice that you are not bored, and you are not frightened, and you cannot quite look away. That is not a habit you picked up. That is a million years of your ancestors doing the exact same thing every night, because the alternative was the dark. Every person you are descended from, without a single exception, sat in front of a fire and watched it exactly the way you are about to. It is the one unbroken thread that runs all the way back down your family tree to the first hominin who refused to run. You are looking at the oldest thing your species owns. Tell me your team, cooking or protection, and tell me how long you would really last in that forest without a lighter. If you made it this far, hit like and subscribe, because there is one more part of this story. Every animal stayed away from our fires. Every animal except one. Something kept coming back to the edge of the light, night after night, close enough to watch us, but never close enough to touch. It was a predator that hunted in packs and could have taken any of us. And instead of us killing it, or it killing us, something completely different happened. Why did the wolf walk into our camp? That is the next video. I will see you there.